Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, and above all, the panelists over here, thank you. Thank you very much for attending this, this early bird session. This is a novelty in the program of the Blitz Strategic Forum. For several years now, we've had a night owl session, and this is a kind of a counterbalance to the night owl session. You know, there are people that cannot sleep in the evening, so they would attend the night owl session, and then there are people that cannot sleep in the morning, and they attend the early bird session. Anyhow, thank you all for being here. We have about 45 minutes. And I will not be, as I am usual, a chronocrat. This time I will try to be as nice to my panelists as possible. So we have not allocated times. My idea is that the conversation would flow as freely as possible among ourselves. But nevertheless, before I start, let me do the introductions. I think it's important that we know who is today in the panel, and later on I will also open the floor to our listeners, and you're freely and welcome to contribute to the debate. But from my left, if I may begin, is Dr. Kaja Širok. She's a director of the National Museum of Contemporary History, PhD in cultural history, researches on national historical narratives and memory studies. Besides being a director of the National Museum of Contemporary History, she also teaches at the University of Nova Gorica on cultural heritage. We are very glad to have her with us this morning, and I'm sure she will be able to explain us some projects that she's been doing lately in terms of cultural heritage and diplomacy. Then to my right, His Excellency Pekka Metsä, the Finnish ambassador to Slovenia. His career goes from business, if I understand well, to diplomacy. He's not what you would call a classical diplomat. Over the year and something, we have become good acquaintances, not to say friends, and I admire his work. Very much. He was educated at the Turku Business School for Administration. He served at UN, at a Finnish delegation at the UN in Geneva and New York, held posts in Warsaw and Oslo. He's known to the Slovenian public as open, sincere, and direct. Someone very wittingly the other day posted on the Facebook that there are ambassadors and there are ambassadors with small or with capital A, and he's one of those ambassadors with capital A. So welcome to this panel. And the third person, which needs no introduction, at least to the Slovenian public, is what we call, I don't know whether this is appropriate, I mean it is by the results, but by the year not yet, but a sports legend in the Slovenian sports narratives. Let's put it this way, Jure Košir. He was in 1991. He was a world youth champion in skiing. Has won 5 medals in World Cup. Has been 4 times at the Olympic Games. Has won bronze in Lillehammer. In 1994, he was Athlete of the Year in Slovenia. And in our hearts and in our minds, he remains one of those big names, not just of Slovenian skiing, but of Slovenian sports. Today, he's an entrepreneur. He works in sports marketing and sports management. And please feel very welcome to this panel. The idea of this year's panel is about hidden dimensions of diplomacy. As you all know, there is an overall topic that we discussed during the Bled Strategic Forum, and that is trust. So my question, and maybe this is an opening question to all of our panelists, is the question of how can sports, how can culture, how can, if you want, soft power contribute to diplomacy? One of my questions is the question of whether sports and culture are just a way of promoting the state, or are they tools of diplomacy? We all know, and we've all witnessed, how sports can contribute to relations, not just between states, but between people, and in politics as well. But nevertheless, I don't want to kind of set the debate in a too narrow fashion. So I would maybe ask, and I'll sit down now. I will ask our panelists, starting from Dr. Širok, maybe to share some opening thoughts with us, and then we can continue with our discussion. Please. Absolutely. We'll all sit.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me, or shall I open the microphone? Okay. Yeah. So, good morning again. So, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. So, my point of view is the point of view of the culture, and we are talking so much about the culture and the different dimensions of culture. Basically, what I do, I'm working in a museum, so what we do in the museum to, let's say, to share these achievements. Let me start with a story. Since I run the Museum of 20th Century of the National Museum, what we do every year is to invite the excellencies, their families, and the ones who are working in the embassies to come to the museum and to show them our history. It's a 1-hour run going around the permanent exhibition, and I think it's a good way from people from abroad to know who we are, what are our values, what we do, and why our history sometimes is so complex that even us don't understand it. And they told me that after going around the exhibition, they know a little more about us, about our moral values, and about what happened in our country. So basically for the museum, for us, that's the first step on how to promote our country. But of course, the culture has a very broader context in diplomacy. And we are trying to do a lot of projects which can go from inside. So inviting our other countries to our country to share and to promote their values and their culture. And on the other side, the outside. So it means that our culture is going outside the national borders and promotes the country. So that's on a short level. Hope it was okay.
Thank you very much. May I ask the ambassador now maybe to tell us a little bit how he sees this diplomacy, culture, sports. The classical diplomacy that we all know, we can always say it's behind the hidden doors, it's not behind the hidden doors. Some of it is public diplomacy, some of it is hidden. But nevertheless, in your position, in your everyday work that you do, how do you see these things combined? Would you say it's just a promotion of culture? Would you say, as Dr. Shirok has said, it's about understanding, it's about getting to know each other. By getting to know each other, it's also about strengthening our ties that we have among nations. How do you see these questions, really?
Okay, thank you, and I'm so glad to glad to be here after 3 years in Slovenia. So I have lots of friends here, and I have learned to know people, and I have learned to know the country much better than what it was 3 years ago. My knowledge about Slovenia. When I made my strategic plan for my period here as an ambassador, I had a couple of outside of the mainstream diplomacy projects in my hand that I presented to our ministry. One was Eurobasket. I saw there's a chance to make us understand, bring our characters more known to each other. And the second one was more related to the culture in general, not really promoting the culture, but I want to stress it that we have made mistakes if we just think that it's enough to show pictures of our achievements in buildings, both our countries have beautiful nature, but what has been quite often missing in the diplomacy are the people. We need the faces, we have to know what are the characters of the people. And so Eurobasket, like that story, fantastic achievement from Slovenia. But the way how we built it up was that we tried to also for the wider Slovenian public to make understood what is the Finnish character. And of course it's about the team, but it's also how you do it, how much joy you get it out of it, that you are achieving something through the means of your skills and team spirit. Yesterday I hope that in the leadership discussion we should have talked more about the team leaders, because I think leadership is about team. It's not about getting one strong leader. That may go actually wrong, as we have seen in the world so many times. But so, to get to know the people through this project, so sports can really do that very well. And another thing is then culture in the wider sense. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I have been sitting through all the SNK drama premieres, most of them not really being very fluent in Slovenian. But what it has brought to me is that I have really learned to know on the stage how Slovenians are expressing themselves. I have learned to know the actors, the directors, and so on. This summer, SNK Drama brought a play to a Finnish theater festival. For the first time in 40 years in Scandinavia, Slovenian theater was shown in the festival. And there were lots of stories based on this play. How are the Slovenians? So these are the elements. Through sports, through culture, you learn to know the people, because this is the only way to start a meaningful communication. You can have other kind of communication, just as in maybe earlier in the classical diplomacy, it was just promotion. No, that doesn't bring like a good results. You really have to go into the depth, to go into minds of the people. And as I said, that my best discussions here I have had with my Slovenian friends, sitting on the floor, drinking beer and eating pizza. That's the way to get into the people's minds, to me.
Thank you so much for this contribution. But would you say that that is towards understanding of people, or is it it serves the purpose then later on of diplomacy? How important it is for you as a diplomat to know the people first, to be able to to achieve because diplomacy is about foreign policy goals. To be able to achieve then your foreign policy goals. How do you see this this relationship?
Yeah, you're so right about this. And it's all about what is the theme of this whole forum here. It's about the trust. You create the trust on sitting on the floor, really opening up yourself. And that's the way. And it really bears fruits. Like now after 3 years, I can say that whoever pops up, important connection, well, you have an upcoming new prime minister. I know him for a long time. It's so easy when you have built up this kind of trust on just being yourself and creating an atmosphere of free-floating discussions. I think this means really a lot to our relationship. It's so easy to build up on more serious issues. And as I said, drinking beer and eating pizza, but then at the end of the day, we have to solve the problem that the world is not dancing into the tunes of Sound of Music. We have serious problems to solve with. And if you have trust to somebody that the person has really opened up to himself to you, then you can base on the future actions, the common actions, on completely different level. It can happen through sports, it can happen through discussions in the lobby, in the SNK drama. It can take many different places, but you have to do this work. And to me, at least personally, this is the only way to do this job. I couldn't work in a wax cabinet or a museum.
Okay. Thank you. And if I may ask, Jurek Košir, from your experience, you've been to 4 Olympic Games, numerous other, many other competitions. You have met an enormous amount of people, mainly, I presume, from the area of sports and business, but I guess also politicians, diplomats, various others. How do you see this connection between sports, diplomacy? Is sports just a promotion, or can sports play maybe a different role? I mean, we all know that in old Athens, in old Greece, I should rather say, you know, when there were Olympic Games, everything else stopped, including war and many other things. And this is what they were focusing on at the time. So how do you see this?
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. Promotion and the diplomacy. I think today's most important sporting events, let's talk about the Olympic Games or Soccer World Cup just recently, is the stage of politics, diplomacy, show business. Everybody's there at that let's say at that week, and the world's media, or let's say focus of the world's media is there. So it's a stage for many people, and I think it is used as several let's say platforms. And diplomacy, I guess, of course, especially I would say for a country like ours, where I guess there's probably chances of unofficial meetings and yeah, I guess diplomacy. We have a Mr. Kunstel over there behind. He's been in Canada for several years, and he knows how alpine skiing was connecting, let's say, diplomats and politicians. So, yeah, promotion. I would say I cannot even think about how many times I had to explain where Slovenia is, what is Slovenia, and it was always nice to talk about my country. But we should focus more on presenting ourselves on the sporting events like that, on the stages like that, and I think we're doing that.
Some of you might remember that in the past years, we've had what we call ambassadors in science. It's a national award that we give to the most prominent. It's a national award we give to the most prominent scientists that we have in this country. I see you in this sense as, of course, as an ambassador, not in the classical official capacity, but nevertheless with what you've done or what you did. To my mind, you're of course ambassador in the sense of representation, because you represent what Slovenia is. You represent the best in sporting in Slovenia. Would you see your role in this way?
Yes, I could see myself in that, and I try to do my best of presenting my country to the others, and it is just logical, you know. We should always be proud of our country, and since we are, you know, rather small country, we should work even harder to present ourselves the right way, and through people like, let's say, athletes or those that have chance to be seen abroad, we should use that as a ambassadorship.
If I may move a little bit further on to the topic of quick fixing. Sometimes the classical diplomacy has obstacles. Sometimes we can't achieve through the classical channels what we would like to achieve. Do you all, and this is a question to you all, in a sense, do you see culture, science, sports as something that could fix something that classical diplomacy at that moment cannot do? Would you see it as an icebreaker? Would you see it as, I mean, we have those examples in history, anything from ping pong diplomacy between China and the US to maybe to many other examples. I mean, the latest that I know is let's say, obviously there were no issues, but having a huge exhibition of Slovenian impressionists last year in Paris was probably one of those things that would help the relations, the already very good relations between two states. So do you see these other non-traditional diplomatic channels as a quick fix, or is that on the long run?
Well, I don't think it's a question of fixing. It's more of sharing or being part of the greatest achievements of the mankind. Sport and culture, they are both universal languages. Diplomacy can have many languages on many different levels, but if we take it from another side, what sport or culture are, and let me say for culture, let's say music and different kind of sports, we are always talking about really great achievements of the humankind. People who really push themselves on the edge of what they are able to do. People who are really, they don't have just talent. They at the same time, they are really working very hard. And it doesn't matter from which country they are. But at the same time, when they are on the Olympic Games or when they are playing their music, they are really the one who are promoting your own country. And you really feel proud that they are from your same language group. Yeah, it's not about fixing for me, it's about sharing and about promoting and showing that our cultural or sport level is the same as it is in the other countries. So, very quick.
Ambassador?
Yes, thank you. Quick fixing, yes, in that sense, both sports especially I think sports can serve that purpose, like especially in the more complicated world where the big political issues come between nations and the dialogue ends. So I see that sports can continue a dialogue when other means have sort of like been exhausted. So it can come handy that let's keep it still going, let's do the sports, let's play ice hockey, let's do the skiing, although we cannot really talk to each other otherwise because things are going so bad. So that definitely can work as a quick fix, as you were referring to some things from the past. But still I would say that as Kaya was saying, more like of them, that it's a long-term project of fixing for the future troubles. I think that's how it works best, so that by doing these things together, by playing basketball together, starting to understand each other, we build the trust that then can maybe postpone some of the problems that we would have otherwise. I can, you know, I don't see that, like, we like Slovenians so much. I don't think, and one part of that was the basketball last year. We think you are a great basketball nation. The whole Finnish nation thinks that there cannot be problems with this kind of people. So at least that helps for the future if there's an issue. Not that I'm seeing anything, but from that point of view, you start solving the problem quite differently if you wouldn't have this kind of feeling that if, as you said, that I've seen it actually quite often, Slovenia, Slovakia, so people in the world are not really on the world map. But now they know in Finland that Slovenia, those guys and those people who can make a great sports event, and they even cheer for the others when they're doing well. That shows the character. Here again, we are talking about the people, so that shows the character of Slovenians, that you don't cheer only for yourself, for your own people, but also for the others if there's a reason. And this is actually quite deep message that comes through it. And certainly it helps in the politics. It strengthens Slovenians' position. So do it again, something like what happened last year. So I haven't seen any discussion that it should have not have been done, but do it again. You do it well, and it really pays off.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Mr. Mezzo, and these moments should be used. You know, it's a more relaxed atmosphere. Sports usually gives us joy. We're enjoying the performances of or the games. Let's put it the games. So yeah, definitely can be a quick fix problem. Unofficial meetings, and I guess I'm not an expert in this field, but I guess talks like that can for sure move things forward, right?
From my experience, if I may share, probably if we talk sports, which is part of my portfolio, I have to say I was probably the proudest of all to have been to the Sochi Olympics, and as Jure Košir says, you know, everyone was there. I mean, when we were cheering for Tina, or when we were at alpine skiing, there were heads of states. There was Swedish king. You know, they were all there, and you could. I mean, they're all very nice, and especially nice, I have to say to us. Because they felt that we are extraordinary, and that we are very, very special, having won all those Olympic medals. It was just an extraordinary.
Which is true.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, we are extraordinary, and I must say it was incredible.
because you could do, and I could do, the program of my bilaterals was quite strong, and I could do them all because they were all there in one place, and I could talk and I could solve the things that would otherwise take months to do it. But there at the Sochi Olympics, it was just easy. And then the continuation of this several weeks afterwards, I was a guest in Finland. And two events. On one hand, the basketball that you were talking about, but on the other hand, also Sochi. That made us, in the eyes of our Finnish hosts, a very, very proud nation. I mean, the reception that we got, the reviews, the questions that we were given, how we are doing it, why, where's the idea from the Finnish state? They're huge in sports, but when a nation like this asks us, the little the small nation, then you know that you're on the right track. But nevertheless, Ambassador, let me ask you one thing. Are there any dangers of mixing these hidden dimensions with let's say, with the classical dimensions of diplomacy? Do you see? I mean, we've all spoken about the pluses, but are there minuses? Are there minuses to it? Can sport or culture can they go wrong? Can we do things wrong?
Yes, I would say that there are, of course, dangers, because here again, it's all about the trust. It has to be a fair play to start with. So a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, we were filming here with the Finnish movie director a movie called Patriotic Man. And it was about doping in skiing. And that's, of course, shows the side that how things can also go wrong if you don't have the right morals, stressing on the fair play. So it can bring right kind of nationalism, I would say, in all of the cases, but the means how you do it should always be looked upon. And I think this is very important question here in Slovenia. You quite a lot talk about ethics, and I think there's always a place to talk about ethics in different fields. I would widen this a little bit from this national point of view. Sports also not only has to do with politics, but it has also more societal feeling. The questions of race, class, and gender. So sports are not completely isolated from this. I would say that sports at its best shows that how inclusive societies get out the best and the creative potential of the people, whether it's sportsmen or otherwise. Sports can give a voice to everybody. So it can be a really big cornerstone in a democratic society for everybody to raise the voice. So the dangers come from there if all these are not let to happen. Sport should neither limit all these great ideas of equality, inclusiveness, so on and so forth. And I think these ethics are discussed all the time in the sports quite actively. This spring, a Finnish swimmer, European level swimmer, Ari-Pekka Liukkonen, came out as the first person in Finland to talk openly that he's gay. And that started a discussion in Finland on the wider scale. Why is this issue being long time taboo? I have to say that now the thing is sort of like much more openly discussed, and Mr. Liukkonen won bronze in European Championships this summer in swimming. Basically, the society now talks about it, that by opening up, by this inclusive attitude, you can get the whole nation on board. And that, I think, is important also in sports, that it's not seen as some kind of exclusive. And also women, I would stress. Maybe sometimes I have a feeling that we focus too much on men's sports. And the women, maybe individuals, get enough attention, but not as a whole. Look at the team sports. I don't think they're on the same level. So one always has to look at these things honestly, that what can we do better? And nations can also play here a role, like putting money on training a women's team, for example, showing example to the rest of the world. So these are a couple of examples that things can be done better even.
Before I open the floor to all of you, let me ask Dr. Širok, how do you see this this relation that we just discussed?
Well, I was thinking that if I take as a base that culture is, that the idea of the culture is the idea of shared values, ideas, art. Sometimes we have this problem in connection to what you were saying about recognizing the pain of the other. When we are showing something, let's say in the museums, which are my topic, sometimes we can forget, when showing something, the pain of the other who is also involved, let's say, in the same topic or in the same war, in the same event. For example, this year, you know that we started the commemorations of the Great War. So when we are talking about the Great War, we really need to be careful because it's a different story for different countries. And these stories are all painful, all of them, independently from who started the war, who won the war, or what happened in the battlefields. So what was really important for us when starting the projects of commemoration of the Great War is to give space and to give, let's say, shared ideas. And the shared ideas are about the pain and about that every one of us is connected to the history of the Great War. So how to explain this to the population, or how to explain this to foreigners which were coming to the museum? And we started with these participatory elements, giving first the voice to the visitors of sharing their own histories and stories about the war. And then the same project, we invited the excellencies to show us what the Great War meant in their country. And we did an exhibition, and some of the excellencies, they wrote their own stuff. Some of them, let's say, books, but others, personal stories, personal recollections. So you really need to be careful when talking about certain topics on different levels and in different countries. So yeah, that's probably the main obstacles in the museums.
So, from your experience, it can be painful as well. And in these relations between states, you need to be careful not to,
of course,
bring up this pain, yeah, even more.
I mean, the 20th century, it's about pain, and it's about recognizing the pain of the other, not your own, but also of the other. And that's something that, let's say, on a certain level, culture needs to do on a national and international level. That's why we all have these amazing European projects, the cultural projects, which basically share the idea of sharing our heritage and promoting our heritage towards the heritage of the others. Show our pain, but at the same time respect the pain of the other.
Let me now open the floor to all of you, either as questions, comments, criticisms, your experience. Please, anyone. Yes, please. Thank you for saving us.
Thank you
For rescuing, really.
It's fascinating panel. My name is Eva Tomic and I come from Foreign Ministry and I deal with human rights. And I'm a big believer in the great potential of sports for promoting human rights. And we observed in Brazil this summer how ethnically diverse different football teams were. And I think football very often is ahead of the societal consensus on integrating ethnic groups on the brinks of society in, and I love that about football. In any case, I think the best of sports is a form of art for me, and I wonder if Mr. Kushir would agree with me on that, but I don't really see much difference there. But for me as a diplomat, I wanted to pose a bit of a provocative question. Well, the longer I am a diplomat, the more I'm being convinced that liking culture, sports, and science also is actually a prerequisite for being a good diplomat. And this is my question for Mr. Pekka, whether you would agree. And for me, this question is a bit related also, you know, what type of a diplomat one should be. Is it the old school, dry, all to the rules diplomat, or is there allowance for passion in diplomacy? And I have to admit, I tend towards the latter, not knowing, you know, if this is really the way. But this also leads me to a question for the minister. It seems to me that, well, Slovenian diplomats, we should not only like foreign cultures and foreign arts and foreign sports and science, etc., but the starting point should be with somehow integrating into our beings and livings the vast diversity of offer at home. And so, do you see scope, Mr. Minister, for further culturalization of Slovenian diplomats? Would that improve the quality of Slovenian career diplomacy? I'm trying to be a bit provocative, but it's also stemming from observations that it's just so much more fun to do diplomacy if you like all these things. Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. Ambassador? No, you go first. Absolutely.
Thank you, and thank you, Emma, for your question. Not that I really know what to say about this exactly, but I would say that I believe very strongly that it's again about the trust. Like you can get information and collect information as a kind of like research diplomat. Okay, that's fine. You get the basics correct, but without throwing yourself into the game, without putting yourself into the game, you don't get to find out the reasons of the actions, because they are not in the books, they are in people's minds. So that, I think, is the challenge, and one should feel comfortable enough to throw oneself into this game. And it can happen through sports and culture, but I think that's the only way, to me at least, to be useful to my government and to my president, that I throw myself there and find out the reasons and try to understand better. And by connecting people through sports and culture, I couldn't really think a better way to do it. So that's what I think.
Thank you also for the challenge. To me, I don't know really what you mean by culturalization of diplomats, but to me, and me being a student of international relations and globalization, to me, of course, I would go to the thing that you referred as later, and that to the latter, and that is to go into the more of the not so classical and dry diplomacy, but other ways of doing it. To me, a diplomat should always bear in mind that he represents all. There are different walks in the society. He has a classical role of representing, of course, political relations, but there are other walks of society, from cultural, economic, I mean, many others. But above all, he or she should bear in mind that there are, as said, different walks, but also different parts of the society, and that's something that he or he should do. Promotion, yes, but as the ambassador has said, you have to feel comfortable. It's always, I mean, it shows when there is something that you have to do and it's not your position. But nevertheless, sometimes in this job, either as a minister or a diplomat, you have to do things that are not your position. But nevertheless, in the overall strategy, you try to do something that you also feel comfortable with. There are different ways of how you get to the end result, and to my mind, the end result in diplomacy matters. It can either go this way, or you can go in many other ways. To my mind, as said, you have to feel comfortable. Yes, please.
Thanks. Simona Leskora, I'm also diplomat. Thanks, Simona Leskora. I'm also diplomat, and I would like to follow Eva's question. And you gave me exactly the right point where I can go on. You were discussing, I mean, we are discussing trust and people-to-people contacts the whole day yesterday, and it will be the topic today. So I would say that people-to-people contact from grassroots level to up are very important, and this chemistry between the leaders can help sometimes solving the problems. In diplomacy, quick fix are not always the best way to solve the real huge issues. And the sport can be this chemistry thing between the leaders or those who tend to be responsible for solving the problems. And we can all agree that the sportsmen are best ambassadors of their country. So my question would be, solving the problems like in Ukraine, people start calling for boycotting the World Football Championship that Russia will hold in 2 years or 4 years. So what's your opinion on that from the political point of view, Mr. Minister and Ambassador? And then I would like also to hear what's the view of a sportsman, the great sportsman like Jure Koshir is on this issue. Can that help to boycott the event? Or is this a bad thing? Or would that help to solve the problem? Would that just further deepen the problem? So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much also for this question. Please.
Yes, I would like to go back as the question before. Miss, sorry, I forgot your name. Eva. Human rights and sports. I think you point out a great topic here. Big sporting events, or let's say known sporting events, have also great educational possibility for youth. Just an example, Soccer World Cup. I have a six and a half year old son who, and we watched most of the games in the summer. And FIFA did an amazing campaign this year with short films, Stop the Racism, Human Rights, Right to Play, slogans like that. And that's how, I mean, instead of being bombed with corporations, clips and you know, commercials, to have something like that, it's a great thing, you know. And I'm sure it was, my little one found out, you know, Stop Racism. What was that? He asked me about it, we talked about it, and it was a great way to show it to kids, actually. But to go to the next question, I'm sure that boycotting sporting events could be very effective. Could be very effective. I'm sure Russians losing cannot even think about losing World Cup, Soccer World Cup. It's a huge event. It's large business. It would put them in a very tough position, and I've seen that Mr. President Putin was talking about that the other day, 2 days ago. I think it's a good key, a good joker in hands for, let's say, you know, achieving something. If this is a case, you know, I don't know.
We have been talking here about sports and politics. They are really intertwined in today's world. One cannot really help that. Here again, like what to say about this upcoming question, how we should go ahead or stop the ideas of certain games coming up. I would really, if I would be the politician, I would really listen to the people. Because what do the people think of this? Because it really depends on how seriously certain situations are taken and what is the right action to them. So I wouldn't like politicians to make it too principled on something that is not based on what they hear from the people. So in democracy, you should just listen to the people and which way to go. And that way, sports can also be in a means of fulfilling some sort of a tool for democratic administration of listening to people. So that's how I would feel, without taking any stand when it's right, when it's wrong. It really depends.
Thank you. Let me just say a few words to your question, and then sadly we will have to close this session because we are 15 minutes past our scheduled slot. Those of us who have lived long enough know that there have been, at least publicly, 2 well-known boycotts. One would be Moscow Olympic Games 1980, and another would be LA Olympic Games 1984. Both had boycotts. But to my mind, yes, and I agree with you, it sends a message. It sends a strong, very strong political, PR, diplomatic message, if you want. But to my mind, it doesn't solve the problem. The problem will still be there. Now, whether this is a pressure, yes and no, you know, because it depends who you are dealing with. At least the experience that we have from LA Games, from Moscow Games, we see that not much has changed. I mean, it was the other processes that changed the whole thing in 1989 and later on. It wasn't the Olympic Games, and that was what we shouldn't forget. It was at the expense of the sportsmen. I mean, these are people that train for their whole life. This is not just 4 years. They train for their whole life. It's their dreams, no matter where the Olympics are held. But nevertheless, it's their dreams to be there. And you train for 20 plus years to be at the Olympics. Yes, it sends a political message, but to my mind at least, it doesn't, usually, it doesn't resolve the issue. So, if I may thank...
I would just
yes, please.
just
Now
add
we're
one
warming
thing.
up, you see,
I
it's
think
9
we're
o'clock.
talking, maybe I said it wrong. Boycotting is maybe not the right word. We do remember those boycotts, and those were not right. I agree with you. It was more of a, let's say, political ideology, right, thing. And you were absolutely right. Athletes were training all their lives, and then they didn't have a chance to go to the games. Here we're talking, I guess, more about organizational level, right? We should just, I mean, democracy, taking an event away from the country that does wrong things. I guess we all agree on that. And athletes should have rights to play, to perform, to show themselves. And I hope we're done with the ideology things and boycotting games because of that. But why having a huge sporting event in a country that, you know, is under strong critics of, let's say, world's... do you agree on that? I hope.
Yeah. I'm really sorry that we have to close this session. First of all, thank you to all my panelists. It was an early bird session, so I need to thank them really, really very, very strongly. Thank you for being here, for contributing, and of course to all of you. Now we know that we could go on for another hour, probably more. But nevertheless, there will be other Blade strategic forums, and we will be happy, I guess, all of us to contribute on another occasion. So thank you very much.